I've gone to a lot of meetings before, and I'm not sure that any performer has made me as horny as Simon and Zarina just. That was pretty crazy, right? If there was a cable channel just showing them doing that 24 hours a day, I would never leave the house. I'm working on a series of an essay collection, and unfortunately this story is true. It's called Gyms. So like if you imagine if like Jimi Hendrix was here and Jim from The Office, they'd be the Gyms. This is called Gyms. Driving on acid is underrated. It's not as dangerous as you're thinking. You sort of float down the road. Granted, it's hard not to speed, and staying in your lane is almost impossible. Fine, it's probably as dangerous as you're thinking. I was working at a dive bar down on the Embarcadero, and 3 other dirtbag employees and me scored a bunch of acid and drove to Reno. Well, I drove. And they drank beers and sang along to the radio. We had it on this god-awful station that played things like Kenny Loggins' Footloose. Our first night was your typical hard-drinking, hard-drugging bender. It's what we expected the whole weekend to be like, but Anthony got arrested early the next morning. So we were killing time, Jabiz, Ben, and me, waiting for Anthony to be freed from the tank. It was before noon, say about 10 o'clock or thereabouts, and we were at a strip club that had a renowned buffet table. So we figured we could kill 2 birds with one bad idea, see naked ladies and eat prime rib. I mean, why not, right? At a certain point, while getting a lap dance, I asked the stripper, "Hey, can you get us some blow?" "Sure, after my shift." "Well, when's that?" "About 2 hours. I can't leave with the customer or I'll get fired. I'll pick you up around the corner." The next 2 hours were watered down drinks, and then the stripper, I can't remember her name, so let's call her Quinn, said I should meet her in 10 minutes up the block. She drove me to one of those prefab complexes out on the edge of town, all the condos washed in beige stucco, front yards just tan gravel. We walked into her house and she vanished into the bedroom. Told me to grab a beer and sit in the living room. I heard voices coming from the back, and soon she returned carrying a baby. A little boy with bright red hair, the same shade that I had as a youngster. "This is Bobby," she said. "Who are you talking to?" She motioned to the baby. Well, where's the babysitter?" Yeah. You watch him for a few minutes, and I'll go get the blow," Quinn said. She handed Bobby over before I had the chance to say anything back. Then she disappeared into the backyard through the sliding glass door, and it was Bobby and me, staring at each other. I bounced him on my knee and said, "I'm a friend of your mom's." I held that little boy and thought about all the strange men my mom had left me with over the years. There was this one crazy motherfucker, Jim B. He was a handyman at the company where she worked. One day, in his truck, he chomped a cigar and said to me, "Are you tough?" I was about 10 years old. "Yeah, I'm tough." He told me to place my forearm down on the armrest between us. He placed his forearm right next to mine so they touched. Then he took his lit cigar and laid it down on us, who was burning both our arms. "First one to move is soft as a baby's ass," said Jim. Without any dad around, I wanted to impress Jim. I wanted him to say, "Holy shit, kid, you're chiseled out of rock." But I wasn't tough. I was a 10-year-old faking it. I held my arm there, smelling the burn of his arm hair, our skin. I tried to be as tough as was possible, but pretty soon I jerked my arm away and rubbed the spot where the cherry kissed it. "Toughest in all the land," said Jim, retrieving his cigar and taking some celebratory puffs. Truth was, I liked spending time with Jim, even if he scared me. He was a tough man, and no matter how dumb it sounds, I enjoyed being around him. Yes, he was dangerous, but he gave me attention. I was never an afterthought with him, and we spent time together. I was his world. And if you spend enough time being ignored, a burning cigar on your skin isn't so bad. I kept bouncing Bobby and said, "Your mom, she loves you." I don't want to say apathy. I don't want to say malice. I don't want to believe Bobby was left with men like me often. Men looking to score drugs, score anything Quinn was willing to sell. I don't want to ponder all the Jims that might have sat on this same sofa, whipping out their burning cigars, or worse. I don't want to say any of that because Bobby, he deserves better. Quinn was back in about 20 minutes, offered me a ride to town, and I said, I'd rather walk. It's 8 fucking miles. I'll just call a taxi. Let me drive you, she said. Well, can Bobby come? Of course, said Quinn. I can't leave him here by himself, right? She smirked at me, and I didn't know what her face meant, and if I did, I pretended that its meaning was too obtuse to decode. Do you want a bump for the road? She said. Bobby played on his blanket while we sniffed lines, the kind of brutal 8-inch rails that you needed a running start to pack in all that powder. I immediately hated myself and everything in the whole fucking world. The car ride back to town was quiet. Quinn and I not talking much, Bobby gurgling in the back seat. That red hair of his, that red hair of ours. I stared at it in the rear view, knowing that in a couple minutes I'd never see that boy again. He'd live his life and I'd live mine, but in this wicked world, our paths, they would never converge. Sometimes toward a movie's conclusion, a couple quick sentences motored up the screen, telling the audience where this man or woman ended up down the line. And I'd like to do the same thing for Bobby. I'd like to cook up a future for him. First, his mom gets clean. Second, they get out of Reno. Third, she falls in love with a good man, and Bobby has a father figure, someone who's never even smoked a cigar. That's what I want so badly for that innocent boy, and who knows, maybe that's what happened. All I can tell you for sure is that they drove off. I was alone in the motel parking lot with the blow. Anthony was probably out of jail by then. Jabez and Ben were antsy to get high. Bobby was gone, leaving all us Jims in the rear view.